Will the New York National Guard take President Trump to jail if he is sentenced on November 26? Now, let me back up. First off, I'm making this video in a hotel room in Los Angeles. I just spoke about disinformation during natural disasters at an emergency services convention in Los Angeles. And it's funny because this kind of dovetails into what I talked about in my speech at the convention. On May 31st, 2024, former American President Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony charges for falsifying records dealing with non-disclosure compensation. Now, President Trump theoretically faces up to 4 years in prison, but it's more likely that the judge in the case will sentence Mr. Trump to a few months in jail or probation. He is a first-time offender, and there really is no precedent for a case like this. Now, the sentencing was supposed to take place on September 18th, but that was recently changed to November 26th to be after the election. But this video really isn't about that. It's about the disinformation being spread by three actors: far-right political activist Laura Loomer, internet gadfly Matt Wallace, and conspiracy theorist Nick Soder. And what they're spreading is one of two lies: that either the National Guard will be activated to either take President Trump to jail, or New York will institute martial law when President Trump is sentenced. Both of these accusations are lies, and they are built on DIP, or deceptive imagery persuasion. This is where you show images and then use out-of-context text in order to guide your target to a certain conclusion. And this target is you. So let's back up again and talk about the National Guard. The National Guard is a reserve component of the U.S. Armed Forces that is controlled by individual states, not the federal government. Think of it like a militia force, and in fact, many National Guard units, at least on the East Coast, trace their lineage back to the original colonial militias. A lot of them fought during the Civil War as well. Now, oftentimes, the National Guard is used to evacuate people during hurricanes or to fight fires. Think of it as neighbors helping neighbors. And the National Guard can also be called up by the federal government during times of war to fight overseas if the U.S. needs the extra troops. It's a very unique system, and it's a critical component to America's national defense. And what's kind of unique about the National Guard is that they can carry weapons in support of local law enforcement. The U.S. Army can't do that. It's against the Posse Comitatus Act. And this came in very handy on a fateful day in September of 2001. Now, during that horrible day, the New York National Guard rose to the challenge. They provided security around Lower Manhattan, and eventually New York instituted Operation Empire Shield. This mission provided the New York National Guard troops that New York City needed to aid local law enforcement. These troops stood guard as an extra set of eyes at airports, train stations, and even the bridges and tunnels entering New York City. And the mission just never went away. They're still doing that mission. Now, there's a huge advantage to using National Guard soldiers, mainly because of their diversity. So many National Guard soldiers can speak the language of the citizens of New York that they're a very useful augmented force. The National Guard has even made careers out of performing this mission, and they have performed admirably. But some people on the internet, whether intentionally or for clicks or because they don't know much about Operation Eagle Shield, they misrepresent pictures and videos of National Guard soldiers. For example, in this video posted by Nick Soder, you can see National Guard soldiers ascending into a subway because that's their job. They're going to go do subway security. And the commentator is saying,
"Look guys, the National Guard. National Guard is now all over Brooklyn, man. There ain't no cops anywhere. It's only National Guard now, everywhere. Look at that. Martial law coming, man."
It's Operation Empire Shield. It is perfectly normal to see National Guard soldiers on the streets and in the subways of New York. There's also been a video of National Guard at hotels with self-described truth seekers entering these hotels and just asking questions. Now, yes, the National Guard are at hotels in New York City. They're acting as administrative personnel who are dealing with the migrant crisis in New York. Remember, If a state needs a lot of extra manpower to handle a crisis, whether it be a snowstorm or a sudden influx of migrants into New York City, and they don't have a lot of time, the National Guard is a quick way to get bodies on that problem quick, fast, and in a hurry. Now, there are two basic accusations that have come out of this National Guard presence. The first accusation is that the National Guard was activated to take President Trump to jail because there was a fear that the NYPD would come down with the blue flu if President Trump were convicted. This mainly stemmed from Laura Loomer. The blue flu is a colloquial term for police officers calling out sick in protest. And supposedly it's assumed by Laura Loomer that police officer demographics tend to skew to a more conservative way of thinking, so they may be more sympathetic to President Trump. But that doesn't quite add up because the military tends to skew conservative as well. Not all the time, but you're definitely less likely to encounter left-leaning people in the military. But also note that the NYPD has 32,000 officers. There are more police officers in New York City than there are soldiers in the active duty component of the Canadian Army. And there's actually more police officers in New York than there are National Guardsmen. The National Guard has about, I think it's 11,000 Army Guard and about 6,000 Air Guard in New York. And we haven't even added the Port Authority police to that number, the transit police and the state police. I guarantee you that out of the 40,000 some sworn officers in New York, including Port Authority, transit, and state police, they'll find enough people to take someone to jail in the event that President Trump is convicted and receives jail time. So Laura Loomer's accusation is specious at best and an outright lie at worst. Second, there's another accusation that martial law is about to be declared in New York City. So there's a problem with that line of thinking, and that's that the governor doesn't need to declare martial law to activate the National Guard. They can activate the National Guard anytime and for any reason. They have to pay them, but they can just activate them for the lulz. I mean, during COVID in 2021, the Massachusetts National Guard was activated to drive school buses. They didn't have to declare martial law to do that. They just called up selected units and told them to report to the National Guard Armory for driver's training. So that's the truth of the situation. The New York National Guard has been a fixture in New York City since 2001 as citizen soldiers and neighbors helping neighbors. They have played a crucial role in communicating with the residents of New York City because the fabric of the National Guard is made up of the fabric of the state. And while I understand the frustration that some people on the right have who are upset with President Trump's trial, the solution is never to spread disinformation. And if you lie, whether you're on the right, left, or somewhere in between, I will find you, and you will have a less than optimal outcome. And hey, if you want to support the channel, pick up one of my Alcoholics Moving Cargo Velcro patches from Bunker Branding. It's my tribute to the men and women of the Air Mobility Command who make history, not movies. If I can sell 100 of these things, I can prove to Bunker Branding there is a market for them. We'll be able to get them made in Spice Brown so you can wear them on your uniform until you get caught. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Oh, wow, Daddy, cigarettes. If I smoke these, I'll be cool.
Hey, kid, what are you doing?
Think tank.
You know, kid, smoking isn't cool, but t-shirts, stickers, and hoodies from Bunker Branding sure are.
Wow, Alcoholics Moving Cargo. Awesome.
Intel Life, Air Assault, Live, Laugh, Launch for Destroyer, Trident, HIMARS, and Patriot. Think outside the bomb. Drone Sweep Drone, Department of the Boat People, landmines, and even the tow missile. It would behoove you to grab one today. I better take these. Don't worry, I'll destroy them by burning. And remember, Bunker Branding is cool.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. Bunker Branding!